Good morning. Welcome to the Premium Public Video Forecast discussion for Thursday, July 3rd, 2025, right before the Independence Day weekend, where we have a nice long weekend starting on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's a nice early week, right? And we've had a very active week, haven't we? We've had severe thunderstorms, an isolated tornado, F0, in fact, over southeastern Pennsylvania that was verified yesterday by the National Weather Service. And now we're having another round of thunderstorms and some tropical mischief. Yeah, we got pretty much the whole gamut this morning. So let's dive into the data. We'll start first with the National Hurricane Center. And oh, by the way, just to remind you, please like, share, and subscribe. It actually helps the channel out quite a bit because in a world full of hype and crazy thumbnails out there, I try to keep it as as basic as I possibly can without any of the hype, any of the fear mongering. So the more you like and subscribe, the more the channel grows. So I definitely would ask you to do that. I really appreciate it. And of course, if you'd like to help even more, you can become a premium member, only $15 a month. You get this type of video every day, along with asking questions anytime you want. You got a holiday party planning, a graduation, or anything of that nature, even a wedding, definitely check it out because it's well worth it. Now, let's get into the data here. So we have Mischief here off the southeast coast. The NHC has increased just now the potential up to 60%. And that's not really a surprise here. So what's going on? Well, first of all, take a look at the rest of the tropics. It is quiet. Very, very quiet. So why is there Mischief off the southeast coast? Normally, don't we see these tropical systems come off Africa and whatnot? Yes and no. This time of year, you can get a stationary front kind of festering out here to the north of the Bahamas, and a weak low pressure system can spawn off that frontal boundary, which is typical, right? But when it's sitting over the Gulf Stream, like it is right here, it can start to pick up tropical characteristics. This is a long process. So it takes several days. It's not something that happens like that. It takes a while. So what's happening here is that this is going to fester off of the southeast coast here and produce, well, right unsettled period of weather for the weekend for Florida, especially Atlantic coast of Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina, and probably eastern North Carolina too. So this is going to sit out here and fester and likely pick up some tropical characteristics towards the end of this weekend. And in fact, when we take a look at the precipitable water value forecast, again, pretty quiet here, but let's focus in right here, okay? And you can see for a while it's more linear, certainly looking more like a frontal structure here through this afternoon and into tomorrow. But look at tomorrow evening. You see how it kind of takes on this more of a ball shape. And notice we're getting a little bit more focused towards the center of that ball. Let's zoom in here. You can see what I mean here. This is a sign of warm core development because you're getting all your moisture to pull and focus in one area. You're starting to see rising motion in the center of this mass of moisture. And these are all signs of a low pressure system developing of a warm core variety. Okay. So this is going to start to take shape. Then, as we go on through the weekend and into early next week, it slowly creeps up the coast. This is why, the Carolinas may not have the best weekend while we stay awfully quiet. Another sign of a warm core development is actually this signal right here. You see, when you have warm core development, you have air rising in the middle and then it expands out at the top of the storm, okay, in the upper levels of the atmosphere, and then sinks down, okay, and that leads to subsidence. And usually it leads to this type of signal right here that happens to be sitting right over the northern Atlantic right around Sunday afternoon. Now the concern, and we'll dive into this a little bit more in just a moment in future, a little bit in the video, is that this is going to lift up into the coastal waters of the northern Atlantic and then get kicked right out into the northern Atlantic. So why am I a little bit concerned about this? We'll talk about this in a second when we get into more of the details. As you know, the weather pattern for the summer is pretty much locked in. We are going to be between the Western Atlantic Ridge and the ridge over the plains with a nice trough around the Appalachian Mountains. So Basically, you're going to get this continuation of these polar air masses trying to evade, but they'll fail. That is what is going to be setting up for the rest of this month. And the reason why I bring that up is that in this scenario, I expect to see this type of signal showing up quite a bit. Now, this doesn't mean I'm expecting direct impacts on the northern Atlantic. I would never make that statement. But what I will say is this. Now is the time to just make sure you have all your supplies. You don't have to run out to the store like a nut, but just make sure that, hey, do you have your batteries? Do you have your first aid kit all set? Do you have a knowledge of where you need to go if you do need to evacuate if you're on the coast? Are you prepared for losing power? Right? Even if it's not a tropical system, you've seen the thunderstorms we've been dealing with. You get power knocked out for more than 6 hours. Well, there goes your food. So, are you prepared for that? Okay, those are the questions you need to start asking yourself as we move on through the holiday weekend, which actually is setting up to be really, really nice. So let's dive into the observations here, and then we'll get back to the tropics because it all is connected. Okay, so currently right now we have a stationary front hanging around the region, producing just scattered cloud cover, no precipitation. Temperatures ranging from the lower to mid 70s over the northern interior, upper 70s to lower 80s along the coast. Notice the dew points are in the upper 50s to lower 60s to the north, upper 60s to lower 70s along the coast. This is a really important observation because unlike the other severe event, this one is going to be a little bit less volatile. And the reason why is we're seeing less humidity in the atmosphere. So the fact that we're seeing a reduction in humidity with the stationary fronts that's going to slowly sink south means that the thunderstorms that are going to be a threat for later on this afternoon and evening are going to have less moisture to work with. So not as heavy downpours, not as much frequent vivid lightning, not as much of a support for downburst wind gusts. Still a support, but not as widespread. So we're dealing with a completely different environment here. In fact, let me pull up this precipitable water values. Remember, on Tuesday, you had these type of levels centered right over the I-95 corridor, over 2 inches in precipitable water value. We're nowhere near that. Okay, we're in a much drier environment. Yes, we have a nice polar cold front here with a true polar air mass getting ready to dive in. And yes, there will be a slight increase in the moisture, getting to about 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches, supported for thunderstorms, but just not the type of thunderstorms that we saw on Tuesday. So weaker variety. So that's all starting to play out. And on the latest radar and surface map from WeatherTap, let's refresh this here for just a second here. And you can see that station front hanging around. And you see the first wave of thunderstorms passing to our north. And that is a really, really important sign because what this is telling me is that, hey, all of your divergence and diffluence, you don't even need the model guys right now. You can see this, that all of your best lifting in the upper levels are all focused to the north of us. So this is a really important sign. So this tells me, hey, when we get thunderstorms starting to fire over the Poconos, they're not going to have as much support. They'll have some support, but not as much support. So this is a very important signal here. Again, down here you can see the evolution of our tropical system starting to get itself organized, and you can see the convection here all starting to fire up. Nothing really organized just yet, just a lot of linear thunderstorms along an old frontal boundary. That's pretty much what we're seeing here. Zoomed in, I just want to show this. This is the lower levels of the atmosphere. And some people, well, they tend to get a little bit ahead of themselves, thinking there's something weird going on. No, you just don't understand radar. So the reason why you're seeing this kind of ground clutter here, even though on the observations, not really showing much at all, is that A, we have a boundary here with moisture convergence, and B, you have remnant old outflow boundaries. So that's essentially what you're seeing here. And also, sometimes the radar is so sensitive it actually starts to pick up insects and birds. So that's essentially what you're seeing here. When we take a look at the water vapor satellite picture, there's our trough here. Then remember I said, hey, look, you don't need a model guidance to know where the best forcing is. Well, you can also look at the water vapor satellite picture. And clearly, here's our strong shortwave, and here is where all the best lifting is focused. You're getting a little bit of a lobe right here that's going to be swinging on through. So this is why we even have a threat for thunderstorms in this scenario, because a lot of this is going to get focused to the north of us, which is important because that starts to suppress the thunderstorm potential for us this afternoon and evening, reducing the intensity of these storms. I'm not saying you can't see a severe thunderstorm, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying the best potential is going to be up here towards northern New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, maybe northern Connecticut. On the visible satellite picture, there you can see our lightning starting to show up here over central New York. Over us, here's our stationary boundary. Everything's moving from southwest to northeast. We got a little bit of low clouds here. This tells us we have a stable environment on the coastal plain, especially around Long Island, which again reduces your severe potential. So this is all lining up. And then when we step back, this trough is diving in. We have another one. Let's go back to the water vapor satellite picture. We got another one back here that has a chance to interact with this here. So just put that in the back of your mind. So, looking at 500 millibars, there's our shortwave moving through today, and that's why we're going to see that thunderstorm potential, again, not as significant. Vertical wind shear is marginal over the I-95 corridor and down along the coastal plain, almost non-existent. A little bit more impressive over the Poconos and Catskills because you have the base of the trough moving through. Then after that, nice upper level ridge is in place through the weekend. So the weekend is setting up to be beautiful. Not only that, but because of this polar air mass coming in, we're going to have low humidity. I'll show you that in just a moment. But here is what catches my eye. The tropical feature, maybe more subtropical in organization, is going to get awfully close to our neck of the woods on Monday. And this even shows up here at the mid-levels. This tells me, hey, we need to keep an eye on the coastal plain. So again, here's today, the precipitable water value, not as impressive, okay? Then this weekend, I mean, look at that dry air. That's just beautiful. That is just outstanding for the weekend. This is great news. This is what you want to see as a meteorologist when people are asking you about the weekend. Hey, how's it going to be? When you can show you this, this is nice. This means there's not much moisture in the atmosphere. Then we get to this time period, Monday. The deep tropical moisture stays off the coast, but this gradient here tells me that we need to watch out for some of these scattered showers that may pop up right along the coast, right on the edge of the tropical system, while we have another cold front approaching from the west. So I would say south and east of I-95 corridor on Monday morning and Monday afternoon, we really need to keep an eye on the potential for these torrential downpours that may show up here that isn't really handled very well until we actually get an established warm core low really to figure out exactly how close this gets to the coast. But I would say if you are on the immediate coast, Monday morning and Monday afternoon could be rather interesting. And we also see that support here at 700 millibars with the relative humidity. I'd say northwest of the I-95 corridor, you're fine. But southeast of the I-95 corridor, someone might be in for a surprise here. So I'm just going to watch this very, very carefully and see how this plays out. I did promise you good news about the humidity. So let me first jump to the Cape here for today. Again, nowhere near as impressive. So just another point that, yeah, we have thunderstorm potential, but this isn't widespread severe or anything of that nature. Primary concern here will be downburst wind gusts and small hail. But I did want to show you, here we are, the dew points for this weekend. Now, we've been dealing with humid conditions. Look at this for Friday, for tomorrow. 50s in the afternoon. Dew points in the 50s. It is going to feel amazing out there. And Saturday is just as nice, 50s and 60s. Sunday we see a bit of an increase in humidity, but overall not too bad at all. So this is a great sign for us that the weekend is going to be absolutely beautiful. For the thunderstorms, the HRR is, again, focusing more over the interior, maybe clipping New York City. The NAM's a little bit more aggressive here. So the way I would handle this is that, look, after roughly 3 p.m. over the Poconos and Catskills, it's going to be a threat for thunderstorms. After 6 p.m. for the New York City Metro. I think Philadelphia Metro, I think you're going to miss out on the bulk of this, but I can't rule out a thunderstorm moving through. right? I think the primary concern here is going to be over the northern interior. The HRR is very much focused more to the north, and the fact we're seeing thunderstorms fire up to the north of us already would suggest more suppression over our area, so I'm leaning more towards the HRR. Just know this. The afternoon evening hours will be a threat for thunderstorms. We'll keep an eye on it. I don't expect any type of widespread severe thunderstorms, but do expect about a 30 to 45-minute impact from these thunderstorms as they drop through from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. After 8 p.m., everything collapses and everything quiets down. This could be a factor for you if you're going to a Mets game, though. I know they're at home. This could lead to some delays and some issues. As far as the rest of this forecast, well, let's dive in. For today, sky clouds. Watch out for scattered thunderstorms in the evening. High temperatures in the upper 70s to lower 80s over the northern interior. Mid to upper 80s on the I-95 corridor. Lower to mid 80s along the coast. For tonight into tomorrow morning, look for skies to clear by tomorrow morning with low temperatures in the mid to upper 50s over the northern interior. Lower to mid 60s in your suburbs, mid 60s in your urban areas. Tomorrow afternoon, beautiful weather conditions, low humidity, plenty of sunshine. Perfect for Independence Day, with high temperatures ranging from the mid to upper 70s over the northern interior, lower to mid 80s along the coast. On Saturday, beautiful weather conditions again. High pressure and control, quiet conditions. Look for low temperatures in the mid to upper 50s over the northern interior, upper 50s to lower 60s in your suburbs, lower to mid 60s in your urban areas. High temperatures ranging from the upper 70s to lower 80s over the interior, lower and along the immediate coast, lower to mid 80s on the I-95 corridor. On Sunday, look for scattered cloud cover but tranquil conditions. Look for low temperatures in the lower to mid 60s over the northern interior, mid to upper 60s along the coast. High temperatures a little bit hotter, looking at lower to mid 80s on Long Island, upper 80s to lower 90s along the coast, lower 90s on the I-95 corridor, and upper 80s to lower 90s over the interior. On Monday, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. Mild guys is starting to pick up this potential here for showers. Now, the way I see this is that this is not going to be a widespread heavy rainfall threat, but you're going to have your primary moisture precipitation shield, rain shield out here, and then you're going to have these scattered showers. And a couple of these scattered showers will be capable of some pretty heavy downpours given the amount of moisture available in the atmosphere right along the coast. So again, south and east of the I-95 corridor, okay? Then you get scattered cloud cover over the interior ahead of this cold front that will be approaching. Look for low temperatures ranging from the upper 60s to lower 70s over the northern interior, lower to mid 70s along the coast. High temperatures in the mid to upper 80s over the northern interior, upper 80s to lower 90s on the I-95 corridor, mid to upper 80s along the coast, lower to mid 80s on Long Island. Monday night into Tuesday morning, the cold front swings through with additional scattered showers and a few isolated thunderstorms. The timing of the cold front in the overnight hours and early morning Tuesday reduces the threat for coverage of the thunderstorms. So again, we'll keep an eye on this. Look for low temperatures in the upper 60s to lower 70s over the interior, lower to mid 70s along the coast. Tuesday afternoon, the cold front begins to stall out. Look for a variable cloud cover with a few isolated showers. High temperatures will range from the lower to mid 80s over the northern interior, upper 80s to mid 90s on the I-95 corridor, and upper 80s to lower 90s along the coast. On Wednesday, frontal boundary just becomes a regular trough. Sky cloud cover, can't rule out an isolated thunderstorm in the afternoon and evening. Low temperatures will range from the upper 50s to mid 60s over the northern interior, mid to upper 60s in your suburbs, upper 60s to lower 70s in your urban areas. High temperatures will range from the lower to mid 80s over the northern interior, upper 80s to lower to mid 90s on the I-95 corridor, and upper 80s to lower 90s along the coast. And on Thursday, another cold front approaches, variable cloud cover, a few isolated thunderstorms towards the late afternoon and evening hours. Look for low temperatures in the lower to mid 60s over the northern interior, mid to upper 60s in the suburbs, upper 60s to lower 70s in your urban areas. High temperatures will range from the mid to upper 80s on Long Island, upper 80s to lower 90s along the immediate coast, lower to mid 90s on the on the I-95 corridor and around the Delaware River Valley, and upper 80s to lower 90s over the interior. So, a very interesting weather pattern is certainly evolving. We'll keep an eye on the tropics to see if we get any of that mischief on the immediate coast on Monday. Other than that, the holiday weekend is setting up to be beautiful. So get out there, and as always, stay safe out there.